16 minutes after 7 o'clock. We've got our special guest on Friday morning, Michael.
As we always do, we'd like to welcome, and he's waving at us over Zoom there. Can you see him, folks? Say hi to Gene Valentino. Good morning, Gene.
Gentlemen. All I know is one thing that Ted Tibbett brought up, Cher Bono, and I'd love to see that I'd love to watch Ted watching Cher at that sexy age of 77 years of age. What do you think, Michael?
Well, let me tell you what I think. I used to go to get my hair cut. They play nothing but Cher music in there. Best haircut I ever had.
Yeah, I love Cher. I love her music. I love her. I think she's awesome. Now, she's crazy, but she's wonderful at the same time. You know, sometimes you just have to put up with the crazy.
Guys, let me tell you one little quick thing right here. When I was a kid, we'd steal our daddy's Playboy magazine and go read it today. The kids are stealing Martha Stewart's cookbook and going into that.
Look at, you're not going to get me saying anything about crazy. My wife's about 20 feet away, and the last thing I want to do is talk about crazy.
You know the old saying, they're all crazy except for your mama. But if you ask him, he'll tell you your mama's crazy.
Oh, the world's falling apart, and we're laughing. Good morning.
We need to laugh, and that's a good segue because, Michael, a good friend of ours just said yesterday, our country is being run by stupid people. I cannot believe how we in our constitutional republic have allowed such stupidity to come up the chain in the electoral and appointment process of our democratic constitutional republic. We've got whack jobs all over the place. Here I am thinking I'm coming on the show this morning to talk to you about the Durham Report, which was released last Friday after this broadcast. And now it's old news, for crying out loud, only to be overshadowed by the whistleblower issue when we have to listen to three loyal Americans talk about the FBI is ready to crush you if you dare go against the mission of the administrative hierarchy in the FBI or the elected liberal officials running this country at this time. We have a breach in the constitutional republic, which China's giggling on the sidelines and laughing at, if we don't get this under control. And here we are giving economic favoritism to China in the G7 meeting now going on over in Japan. Boy, I hope that Biden gets his butt back home to get this Kevin McCarthy budget balanced before June 1st. That's all I can say.
Well, this Durham report that you talked about earlier, I mean, there's just so much to unpack there. One of the things is that the FBI, and look, I told you on before we got on the air, I talked to an old FBI friend of mine yesterday. I will not name his name. He's not really a political guy. But let me just tell you, he laid it out for me. He said, what happened is you've got two different parts of the FBI. The FBI has a counterintelligence division that handles all possible things that go on in the United States. For example, they handle the young Army guy, National Guard guy who recently got arrested for giving away state secrets on that computer or that gaming platform, Discord. So that's what they do. And it's very important what they do. The CIA takes care of everything that's out of the country. The FBI takes care of everything in the country. But what he said has happened is in the counterintelligence division and some of the upper echelon of the FBI, that they have been filled with liberals. And he said, look, the FBI man for man is more conservative than liberal. He said, I can tell you, I worked in that organization for 30 years. But the liberals happen to be in charge right now. And that's what you get. And also one of the other things that's always a difficult thing when you're working for a federal agency like the FBI is that every time a new attorney general comes in, he sort of sets the tone for what's going on in the FBI. They
There you
set
go.
guidelines and rules.
Yeah.
And so he said, for example, right now in the FBI, if someone is charged with a crime, let's just say drug trafficking, and they have a gun with them, well, they call those enhancements. So a guy has a gun, doing a drug deal, and they charge him with an enhancement, and that makes him get more time. Well, this administration, and I was shocked to hear this, I didn't know this, they have told the FBI and the Department of Justice of the attorneys for the different districts across the country, don't charge people with enhancements. So they're getting less time.
Yeah. It goes unnoticed often, and let me just say it for the audience benefit. We're proud to have Michael, who has actually served in law enforcement in an earlier chapter in his career, and for that, I commend you. You have an advantage on this topic, Michael. Yeah, you have an advantage. Go ahead.
Quickly, I just want to tell you what this FBI agent told me. He said the problem with the FBI today, and has been since whatever you think of him, J. Edgar Hoover, he said, since he's left the FBI, there has always been someone from the Department of Justice, an attorney who has no law enforcement background. He hadn't been out on the streets. He's never seen how it works out here, doesn't understand it. And they're the ones that have been in charge. He said, we need to get a retired chief of police from somewhere across the country and make him the director of the FBI. And he also thought it was a good idea that maybe Congress, the Senate and the House, should vote on and appoint the Department of Justice, the Attorney General.
No, I couldn't agree further with that. Merrick Garland, to his credit, and I have very little good to say about Merrick Garland under Biden here, he did stay out of John Durham's way, who was the special prosecutor originally appointed under the Trump administration, under Bill Barr. The problem is that the Biden administration didn't expect John Durham's report to become so impactful. He said that Jim Comey, the former director of the FBI, was at the source of this atrocity. He failed to uphold the strict fidelity of the law, which leads provided or funded by Trump's political opponents. He did not adequately examine the information given to them. This is a compliment to the John Durham folks, but in this 300-page report, partisan politics say these liberals are saying Durham went too far. The problem is his revelation showed he didn't go far enough. There's egg on the face of the media as well for accusing Trump of things they claimed and reported were true, like Russian collusion. How many people? Do you remember the 51 people, including John Durham, James Clapper, John Brennan, and I could go on with 51 others that came out and signed a document saying that Russian collusion was true and Trump was in the middle of it, only to find out it was a false narrative? Tells us that the Trump election was stolen. Oh, but let's move on. Let's move on because that's the past. If we don't learn from the past, we're bound to repeat the mistakes. Haven't we learned that before? And now we're in a situation where there's an upcoming election and you have insanity in the Democrat Party trying to push through the Democrats with 210 House Democrats signing a debt limit discharge petition to sidestep the valid efforts of House Leader Kevin McCarthy to raise the debt ceiling at your expense and mine. When does it stop, Michael? This whole issue is being dealt with against the backdrop of a regression back to Title 42 on our southern borders, and 18,000 people are shipping into these Democrat liberal sanctuary cities per day. And let me run for just a second more. 22,600,000 population in Florida now exceeds New York State at 18 million. But Florida had a $2 billion budget surplus in the last fiscal period. So reports our chief financial officer, Jimmy Patronis, against a serious debt into the billions of dollars in New York State. And its sister state, California, just as woke, just as Democrat, just as liberal, wants to hand out compensation. They're already billions of dollars in debt, and they're now wanting to give compensation to the racial inequity that occurred over 100 and 250 years ago. And there was no slavery per se in California when the issues were in the East Coast during the North and South Union and Southern states. It was just a mistake, Michael.
Well, you're right. It was a huge mistake. But back to the FBI, you know, when we look at what's going on, this Durham report, when we see the totality of it, what we see is a group of people who opened an investigation against a sitting president, and they had no basis to do so. That was the words from a former FBI agent who was with the agency for 30 years, worked all over that agency in many different areas, many different arrests. Actually, he's got a book coming out. We may expose him at some point in the future. He told me he might want to come on and talk about his book. But let me just tell you, he said that what they had was a counterintelligence operation that was opened because of bad information from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And he said the problem was they didn't want to believe. In other words, they wanted to believe that Donald Trump had done something wrong because they were liberals. They wanted to believe it, and they kept that case open and going, hoping that evidence would eventually show up, and it never did. When they should have, in fact, closed that case.
Yeah. Congressman Debbie Wasserman Schultz of South Florida, the Miami-Dade area, now is saying the FBI whistleblowers before Congress yesterday were not credible and are to be dishonored and disregarded for their testimony before Jim Jordan House Oversight Committee, for the reason that the FBI has decided that their testimony and credibility is no longer. This Satan, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, is one example of Newt Gingrich's point last night on Fox News of taking out the Democratic Party. Now, when I say take out, I mean removing them from office through the election process. They need to be removed. There needs to be, I never talked I always believed in the constitutional republic, you vote for the best person.
30 seconds.
Okay. That you vote for the best person regardless of political party. In this case, the Democrats have aligned themselves as a force to do harm against this nation, and it shows in the reports coming out. Vote Republican all the way, whether you like it or not this year. We've got to fix our government.
I agree. 100%. You timed that perfectly. Thank you so much, Gene, for joining us. I hope you have a fabulous weekend.
I'll be watching Ted, watching Cher.
Yeah, I think I might do that. I'm going to get
my binoculars are on. Take care, guys.